Hey everybody, welcome to my Other's Keeper. We're doing it a little differently today. Right now I've got my dear husband behind the camera. He won't be there for long, I don't imagine. But we're going to talk about what helped to save me after my 2015 nervous breakdown. Um, it was a time of absolute failure for my whole body. My brain just broke. There was a bullying situation at work that just completely broke me. When I was finally able to stay awake for a few hours at a time, I started out by doing something beautiful. I needed some beauty in my mind. So I started doing those little paint by numbers things on my phone, the ones that tell you which colors to put in. And then I started doing ones where you got to choose the colors to put in on your phone. And then that's at the height of when paint nights were really popular. So I went to a few paint nights and I learned that not only do I enjoy beauty, but I enjoy being creative. This is the first thing that I painted at a paint night. And basically, if you're not familiar with the process, there's a teacher at the front of the room. They're teaching you how to do what is on their canvas. That's what this is called. It's not a screen. Now, because I am me and I can't do anything the way it is told, this is not exactly what the paint night thing was supposed to look like, but I think it's absolutely phenomenally beautiful. But, anyways, so that's something that I did. I'll show you a few more uh, paintings that I've done since then. But that was kind of the start of me learning how to bring out my own creativity into painting. So we are going to do a painting of either a sunrise or sunset, depends on your point of view. Um, I'm not going to do a pour today because it's very messy and it would take you into my basement, which is really not very bright. Like it's dark in there. Anyways, so we're gonna start out and I'm going to teach you the same way I would if it was a paint night. So I'm starting out, I'm going to use two brushes. Okay. Now you've got your water. You've got your water. Whatever you do, don't drink the paint water. That is rule number one. Don't drink paint water. There's a couple different things that you can use for palettes. A lot of people will use a disposable plate because they're simple, easy. You can chuck it and get rid of it. I like to use a lid from an ice cream pail because once it's all said and done and everything is dry, you just scrape it off. The paint goes in the garbage and you get to use it again. So I really like being able to use it again. So people don't realize that the biggest color or most common color you're going to use in your painting is white. So we're going to start out with some white. This is metallic white, and that may sound weird that it's not a pearl or plain, but it is a beautiful color. I use a lot of Artist Loft because it's easy for me to get at Michael's. There we go. Okay, that is a very, very lot of paint. You never want to use that amount of paint for something that is going to be small on your painting. Okay, so that is our base, that's our white. Now, the reason we have so much white is because we're going to mix that white with some of the other colors, like this cobalt blue, or sorry, brilliant blue. This is neon blue. I don't even know if I have any of that left. We will see. I've got some turquoise because as the sky gets different in sunrises and sunsets, it's very rarely that you will have one shade of blue. There's usually several shades of blue. So for the sunrise and sunset part, we're going to use a tiny little bit of fluorescent red, tiny, tiny little bit, simply because those clouds, when you look up, just are that amazing color that If you took a photograph of it or you painted it, nobody would believe it was the real thing. So we're going to take that, and then we're going to draw a tree. We're going to paint a tree with leaves as a silhouette. And for that, I'm using Liquitex Basics Payne's Gray. So let me just squish some of this onto the plate. Yes, that is the technical term, squishing. And we're going to go from there. Now, as well, I am not a tidy painter. Okay, I am not a tidy painter. So I have this lovely smock that I put on to keep my clothing from getting all gross. So we've got our white, we've got our blue. We're going to use a lot of blue because it's the sky. And then we're going to use smaller amounts of blue for smaller amounts of the sky. So I'm going to use just a little bit of turquoise. See, we don't want to use too much. These are all things that over the time of healing, I was able to learn. It's not difficult. It is simply a matter of learning it. So once you can learn it, you can absolutely change how things are done. So here we go. Here's some of that peach color. They call it light pink. Here is some of the fluorescent red, which is, there we go. Use a little bit of that. And here's our Payne's Gray, which we're going to use more of at the end. So I'm actually not going to put this on my palette right now. Another thing that you learn is that a dry canvas is a thirsty canvas. You're going to use significantly more paint if you do it just dry. So you want to take one of your two brushes, whichever brush you have. I'm going to take a drink because, well, I'm thirsty. Just like the canvas. I'm going to take my bigger brush just so it's faster. And you need your paper towels just to dust off or to blot off your brush. You don't want it to be dippy wet. Like you don't want dripping wetness, except for this part. So we're just going to go on and we're just going to give it a quick once over. If you want to do an acrylic painting, I'm using acrylic paints. If you want to do an acrylic painting that looks more like a water painting, yeah, a water paint. I don't usually have the patience for water paint, waiting for it to dry and that sort of thing. So using this type of technique, the more water, the more it will look like a water painting technique. So, as I have found out, without leaving drips behind, the wetter, the better. So we're going to start out again with our slightly larger brush. We're going to work our way from top to bottom. And as you can see, I am not a tidy painter. It's already all over my hands. Good thing is, acrylic and we're both washable. So we're going to use this brush a little later on when we're putting in the details. So this one, we're going to start out by going with just the blue right at the top, because the top of the sky, when you are looking at a sunrise or a sunset, is generally fairly dark. Okay, we're just going to add, we're going to layer it on. There we go. There we go. And you'll notice that I do straight lines across, or if you are like when I was doing that other painting, you can do it like this so that you get more contour in the sky. That's 100% up to you. You can play with this a lot longer because the canvas is wet. You don't have to wait for it to dry, or you don't have to work with it super fast like you would if it was a dry canvas that you were working with. Okay, so we're going to do that. And now
Okay, so yes, it looks like we are frozen, and I have no idea what you last saw. So I'm just going to stand back here and let you tell me what you saw. I am frozen according to Crystal. I am frozen according to Dawn, but I don't know in the time count where that was. Oh, there I am. Hi. How long was it that I was frozen? I need to know where to go back to. Yes, there I am. So we're going to flip the camera around again. And it was because of my internet settings. Decided to be a pain in the neck. And mirror, camera front. No, I want camera rear. Camera 2, facing back. There we go. There we go. And now you see I had just started the blue. Oh my goodness. Okay. So it's been a while. It has been a minute. Okay. So basically what happened was We started out with this dark blue color right across the top. I'm going to layer a little bit more on to get a slightly darker blue because now what's up there has already dried. I'm going to use this big brush just because it's faster, for no other reason. And there we go. So we've got our blue going on there. There. And as I mentioned earlier, I think you might have been here still, the wetter the better. So you will end up having more of a watercolor effect when you are using a slightly wetter canvas and a slightly wetter brush. So here we go. My husband is now making confused faces behind the camera. If you could stick around there, Doug, so we know if I'm actually online, that'd be great. Okay. And then there, and there, and there. So we've got our deep, dark sky. We're going to just do this on the top. I don't normally give my paintings much painting on the edges, but this time I'm going to. Okay, and now this time we are actually going to clean off the brush. I am not going to go in with a dirty brush. What I did through here is I simply added more white to my already blue brush, which is why you ended up with this slightly sky blue. Okay, and then we're going in with just white. Still, there's a slight bit of blue on the brush, which isn't going to hurt anything. And we're going to just kind of create some wind. And because the brush and the canvas are slightly wet, you get a lovely breezy effect in through there. Okay, and apparently we need to zoom in a little bit. Hello, cameraman. He's very attractive. You should see him. He's lovely. My lovely assistant. Okay, and we want an area where the sun is coming up or going down. So there, we're actually going to do even more white. We're going to clean off our brush. Normally, I don't do a lot of brush cleaning. We're going to clean off our brush. He is apparently going to go get some food because, frankly, he is hungry and he just got home from work. But I'm hoping he will actually work as my cameraman because I can't see whether or not it's working. So now we're going to work again with just some white on our brush. You don't need a ton. Never fill your brush all the way up to here, because that just wastes it. It goes into the base of the brush and you end up having bristles that will die very quickly. Okay, so as you can see, we're not doing a lot in there. So those are our two major colors that we're going to use to start out. I'm going to come in through here and soften this line a little bit. There we go. All right, we're going to give a few more clouds. And the reason we're doing a few more clouds, actually, I'm going to switch brushes entirely. The reason we're doing a few more clouds is because we want to get some of this color in there. And without the clouds, you have nothing for the color to touch, to go on to. So now we're going to use our slightly smaller brush. There we go. At the very end, when I'm finished everything, I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them in water with a little bit of Dawn dish soap in it, and that'll clean out all of the paint. So here we go. We've got that. We're going to start out with this. And now we're going to do some slightly smaller. So what I'm going to do with this brush is instead, I'm going to dab on the paint rather than swiping it on. It's a different style of brush. So here we've got little bits of white throughout the sky. Okay, you don't need a lot. You just need to dab a little bit onto your brush. It's almost as good as dry brushing. Dry brushing is an effect where you have no water on your brush. And it goes over and it leaves little dry patches like this. See how this doesn't look like a smooth, soft color? That's okay. Okay, and we're going to put more white in here because we want this area to be fairly light. Our tree is going to be kind of in that general vicinity. Dear husband, how are we doing? Good. See, he is there. He's not a pigment of my imagination. Yeah, okay. Bad joke. So there we go. Let's put in. Now there's an effect called scrumbling. And I'm going to clean off. And this is kind of a dry brush-ish effect. So I'm going to take the excess paint off my brush. Okay, I'm going to Google it around a little bit, just around. I'm going to into the paint. And we're going to scrumble, which is just what it sounds like, going. And we're going to create some poofier clouds. There we go. So these ones are the clouds that go by when the wind is blowing just underneath. These are the high clouds that show up, that brings rain and all that kind of stuff. Okay, we're going to go in with some white. Again, we're going to do some scrumbling here. Okay, so now we need to let this dry just a little bit, simply because the wet background is going to just keep adding blue. We don't want any more blue. So like I said, or you didn't hear this before, when you're cleaning your brush, you just need plain water and a cup to clean it off. I don't know if you can hear it, but you simply rub the brush along the bottom of the cup, and that takes off 90% of the paint. I have several layers of paper towel here. There we go. And now we have essentially a clean brush. Okay, so Douglas, can you tell me if there are any questions so far or what the comments are? Does anybody have any questions? And you can hear my husband's delightful voice. You're already at the bottom, I believe. You should already be at the bottom. Does anybody have any questions for me? So tell me who's here, honey. I saw Kristen and Pamela and Crystal. Who else?
Brian, Dawn, and Blessed Crystal.
Brian, Dawn, and Mary are here.
Oh, Crystal.
And Crystal, yeah. That's awesome. Nice to see everybody. So now you get to see my own little piece of heaven, my own little piece of what I do for fun. Okay, and I'm doing this. It is basically dry, sort of. It's dry enough. Okay. So now we're going to start in. We're going to go in with a little bit more white. Okay, again, we want to have a slightly fuller brush. So sort of like what you would use for, oh, what's that called? Transferring through a, oh, my brain doesn't work sometimes. Not silk screening. The word has escaped me. Okay, anyway, we're going to put some white there, and now we're going to create the white portions of the clouds, the parts that stick out. Not spackle. They're probably screaming, "It's this, it's this." See, it's great when you have an actual camera person here. It's wonderful. You get to hear the lovely drum beat of patting on of color. There we go. We're going to put some in here, here. I'm going to put some down here because there we go. Okay. I bet you're wondering, when do we get the other colors? When do we get the other colors? We get them soon. But look how much white we've used. I don't know if you can see my white here, but look how much white we've used in what looks like a blue painting. So white, and as you can see, I poured out way too much blue, way too much blue. I'm going to add just a touch more blue in there because, well, there are usually pieces of cloud that are darker than the other pieces. Oh, we need that dry brush-like effect. There we go. With our scrumbling. Okay, now I need to get rid of a lot of that dark blue. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use this brush and we're going to simply soften it out. There we go. All right. How does that look for clouds? Thinking that looks pretty reasonable. My cameraman has left me. Okay. So, my dear cameraman person, you, how's it going? It's going good? Okay. So now this is where we do need it to be a little bit wetter again. We're going to use a fairly wet brush. It's still that bluish color, but that's okay. We're going to use a fairly wet brush to add a little bit of a different blue. So you're going to get a slightly watercolor effect. I'm going to add a little bit of a different blue through here and here. To kind of soften that up just a touch. There we go. See that slightly softer look? So we, like I said, you do not need a whole lot of certain colors. I put a whole lot too much color on my palette. It's been a while since I've done a paint night, so. And now we're gonna do this slightly stippled effect. The name has escaped me. Could anybody tell me what the name of that thing is when you've got these transfers, you splotch on paint around there? I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, it starts with an S, pretty sure. Okay, now at any horizon, you're going to have some clouds that are kind of this color. And when you're doing a horizon, you want to do about 1/3 to 2/3. So our horizon is going to be down this area here. Stencil. That's what I'm thinking of. Stencil. I knew that was an S word. Okay. Going to mix a little bit of white in with that, just so we get a little bit more opacity to it. Now we're going to start out with our slightly whiter peach. White, a little peach in there. Here's our white, with a little peach in there. Oh, we're dripping. That's okay. That's going to get covered. Okay, so there we've got some whiteness to the sky, some light colors. And you're asking, why on earth do I have this right here? Well, this is why. Because as you go, you will have those dark red streaks. So again, we're going to do some with a little extra water here. We're just going to drip it off the cup instead of drying it off onto the towel. We're going to use just a tiny bit of this, just a little bit of that, and we're going to do some streaking right through here. I'm going to move that so I don't knock it off the table, because that's what I do. And so you can see we're layering clouds. We're not just having clouds in one level. Okay, now we're going to mix a little bit of white with it again, just to kind of give us that slightly paler version of the same thing. Okay, and to get it that slightly more watercolor effect, we're just going to add a little bit more water to it. So we're not going to have, there we go. Okay, and with any painting, and this is where it goes from being a simple painting to something a little bit more advanced, we're going to layer. We're going to layer our colors. So I am going to rinse off this portion of color from the brush. We're going to add a little bit more white into these guys again, because this is more of a background cloud, but we needed that to go where it is so that there is layering with the other colors. So there we go. I'm cleaning off my brush. Do we have any questions yet? Are people bored to tears yet? Okay, so now we're going to go back just to plain old white. We're going to do some stencil blots. I'm so glad I remembered that. Stencil. There we go. So as you can see, the cloud moves through that light. It is not simply a matter of having light there. There is very little actual natural white ever in the world. You will never see a natural white ever, ever, ever. Even like a daisy, which is quite white, is not 100% white. It's got kind of a yellowish hue to it. There we go. There we go. Can you see where the clouds are layering in with that color? Oh, got too much. It's not dispersed enough. There we go. Oh, thank you, Crystal. Crystal's going to need a painting to go in her new place. So we may have to do a deal of some sort. Okay, now we're going to go in again with this slightly peachier look, but again, we're going to do it with white. So it is that really pale kind of color. There we go. Okay. You know how at school they always told you never do this to your brushes? Only do this to your brushes if you want them to look like that. And in this case, we want them to look like that. All right, and we're going to go in there. I'm going to put some plain white in through that a little bit. Plain white through here a little bit. There we go. What do you think? I think it looks pretty reasonable. I think I need to go back up here and do some dark blue stencil punching with my blue here, because I think this is just too much of a straight line. So I'm going to go in through here. I'm going to do some little bit of more blending with the blue. So now what we're going to do is we need to let this dry for a little bit, because if I do the dark portions without allowing it to dry, it is simply going to just, everything's going to go everywhere. So we're going to take a break, and I'm going to talk to you folks while this dries for a few minutes. By the way, always, 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 when you're painting, look at your painting from a distance or look at it through a camera. It will always look better from a camera's view versus your eye view, because you will see all the little strange things going on, but nobody ever stands right here to look at your painting. Oh, that looks very nice. I'm very happy with it. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna dry off the brush here. You will see that, like I said, I have way too much blue, way too much white. But it is always better to have too much white than not enough. And my husband's tapping my camera for some reason, and I don't know why.
Somebody says it's beautiful.
Oh, wonderful.
Lester.
Oh, that's Mary.
Mary, right?
Yeah, Mary. Oh, see, I was just about to drink my paint water. Don't drink the paint water. Wasn't that rule number 1? That was rule number 1. Don't drink the paint water. This is a cup that I got made that says, I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. Psalm 40, verse 1. I love that particular psalm. There's a few things in there that just from that one verse are super important. First of all, I waited patiently for the Lord to hear my cry. We can cry out to the Lord and we want him to do things in our time. It's not how it works, like ever. When we cry to the Lord, we need to remember Our timing is not his timing. So you need to wait patiently for the Lord to hear my cry. Being able to have somebody, anybody, hear your cry is so powerful. As we know with Mary and her connection with her Blessed to Crochet and her lighthouse and all of these things, the lifeboat is essential for so many of us to be able to say, you know what, somebody somewhere heard me cry out. And that is something really important. So one of the things that really helped me heal after my nervous breakdown was this verse, and then the couple that come after there. He pulled me up out of the muck and the mire. He set my feet on a solid rock. He put a new song in my mouth, and others will hear it and believe. That is one of my favorite passages. So being able to do this, have this cup is super special to me. Nice thing is it's nice and smooth so that if I happen to get any paint on it, it will wash off. Yay! So as this is drying, I'm also going to show you what else happens. When I do my pour paints, I'm going to back this up just a touch. Douglas, can you come tell me what this looks like? Okay. So this is, like I said, this is my very first painting, okay, that I did with a paint night. Then I learned how to do more blending with the paintings. How to get the water to look like it's moving. As you can see, it's not perfect, but it's good. I did this in 2017. In here, you learn that a black background is not just a black background. It's actually got some color into it. And this has been in the basement, so it's kind of, sort of, you know, dusty. Let's just wipe that off. Okay, so there we go. This is one where everything is a shade of blue of some sort. Okay, the rocks are blue, their shadows are blue, the grass is blue. It's amazing how one color throughout can really cause a lot of depth. Joe has joined. Hi, Joe. Nice to see you. My husband's looking at me like I've got three heads because I'm going to show this one. He went to a paint night with me. He's an engineer. He has, quote unquote, no artistic talent. This is his first ever painting. I think the man has some talent. He knows how to follow instructions very well. He knows what some things look like a fire has the logs and then layers of fire in front, not just the stuff coming from behind. The blending, all of that. I don't know if you can see, but there are little rocks around the fire like that. So in 2017, it looks like, we did a paint night together. We did a lot of paint nights, or I did a lot of paint nights in 2017. It was after that I found my own voice when it came to painting. This was a paint night, but there was a lot of my own in it. The paint night, they wanted us to do different colors in the background. I did my own brushing and my own texturing for the flower. The flower had the same outline, but I did my own texturing, my own colors, something different than what the teacher was doing, because by this point, I don't know if, whoops, that's upside down. By this point in 2017, I actually think I like it better like this. What do you think? Which way looks best? Anyway, so this is the way it's supposed to be. I know that because my signature's down here. So that is the more concrete style painting that I did. And I got very frustrated because I can't do photorealism. I can make it look like a painting and I can make the painting look really cool, but I can't do photorealism. And that frustrates me because I am a fairly reasonable perfectionist. So, having said that, I learned how to do other things. Like I learned how to paint pour, which basically means I simply take colors, I pour it onto a canvas, and you can see the different effects of the different types of paint on there, the little things. I have no control over the finished product. I simply control the colors. I can't even control where the colors go. So that was just this kind of reminds me of a cloudy type of thing again. A lot of my pour paintings, to me, look like they are a matter of NASA's security. They look like satellite images looking down into an ocean or an archipelago of some sort. Then I learned how to make dots and dribbles and all sorts of things like that, different types of textures. Okay. For my birthday a few years ago, my husband built me a spinner, and I have my paint palace outside. So basically, I put paints in the middle of it, all around. Then I attach it to a piece of wood, there and there. I use a drill, and I spin the crap out of it. So you end up with something much more of a starburst effect. See, even that would look reasonable with this as a background, I think. Anyway, so I like that one. I'll wipe this one off as well. This one is a very dark painting in that it is dark. It's hard to see sometimes. I will never sell it because, as you can see on the bottom down here, there are some imperfections. I didn't know how to finish them properly, so I ended up damaging several of my canvases. I may reuse it. But this one is a pour, and then I put red paint on a chain. And you put the chain in a type of pattern, you pull it straight down, and then the chain causes these lines to come out. And they look very floral, very calla lily. I think that's absolutely gorgeous. But again, like I said, down here, we've got some damage to it. So that's a canvas that will never go anywhere. I'm a little picky with what I sell. Finally, my last two are the most recent style of painting that I've learned how to do. It's called a swipe. So with this one, I put a dark color on this side. I put a light color on this side. And then I kind of blurred them in the middle. And then what you do is you take a palette knife, you have yet another paint, and you swipe it over top and see what it does. You use your palette knife, swipe over top, and see how it simply reacts differently with the different kinds of paint that you have on there. It is an absolutely fascinating study in science. You wouldn't think that science had a whole lot to do with painting, but you'd be surprised. It's really quite fascinating how science can have a major effect on what you're painting. And then this last one here, I absolutely love it. But again, there's a fault in it up here and up here. You can't see it, but definitely somebody who purchased it would see it. So this one is another swipe that I did that has some effects coming around like that, just coming through to create a little bit more interest. I love the colors. I love the swiping. This is just, over time, this has just developed into the style that I really like. So this one I did in 2023 or 24, early this year or late last year. I don't recall which. But yeah, so that's, and then with my abstract paintings, I never sign the front because, like with this floral painting, I signed it in a place that, frankly, I wish I hadn't. But this one has to be dark on top, like that. Okay, so Crystal likes it like this, like I did. This is upside down, technically, because my signature is up here. It should be down here. But with my abstract paintings, with my pours, I always sign the back. Oh, 2019? No. Oh, I have reused a canvas that I didn't like. That's why it says 2019 here. So that's the great thing with pouring and with any sort of painting. You can take a painting that you didn't like and just go over top of it, and voila, you have a whole new piece of art. So that's what I did here. So I signed them on the back. And now that we are done looking at these, it's not 100% dry, but it is dry enough to continue with the next portion of our process. Put these away, and there we go. Okay, so the next portion of our process we are going to do is we are going to put our Payne's gray. Now, like the blue, we're going to use a fair bit, but unlike the blue, I am not going to use a schwack of it on my palette. So I am going to, there. And I'm going to take one of my rags. This is my cleaner of the two. I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to wipe off the excess paint. I'm not getting rid of all of it, but I'm wiping off a lot of it because we want to be able to have, there. We want to be able to have some variety in the shading of our painting. So again, I'm going to go with this slightly bigger brush. Like the top, we're going to do the bottom. So like the top, we're going to do the bottom. We're going to just take the excess paint or water off of here. We're not going to dry it off completely. Okay, we're going to go in here and we're going to start with our Payne's gray. We're mushing it in with some of the color so that it's getting more of a there we go. And we're starting down here. And what we're doing is we're creating a horizon. And we want the horizon, we don't want it to be completely flat because that's boring. And who wants a boring horizon? Okay, I'm going to move that out there so I can get right to the bottom. Moving my cup because, frankly, I don't want to be throwing it all over the place. So as you can see, because I'm using different paint strokes, because I'm using different brush strokes, I'm creating a very interesting landscape when it comes to our base. Here we go. Okay, and I can use a bit more Payne's gray. It doesn't hurt anything. Okay, there we go. Douglas, could you go downstairs and see if you have if there's a black available, or you can talk and I can go look for the black. He's going downstairs. Ask me if I'm surprised. There we go. Okay. So there we've got some interesting landscaping going on here. So we're going to be able to have a tree and it's going to reach up into the sky it's going to have branches that kind of go all over the place. And it's interesting to do a tree because, like humans, trees never look the same. There's not many different right and wrong ways to do it. Yeah. Anyway, I really like this Payne's Gray. It's not a completely opaque color. So when I mixed it in with some of the other colors, you can see over here, there's a little bit of this in there over here. There's a little bit over here. Did you find a black? Ooh, we have several blacks. Okay. Okay. All right. Ugh. Okay, we're going to use this black. Again, it's Artist Loft. I don't think it's been opened before, so it probably has a seal on it. There it is. There we go. Okay. And again, we don't need a lot. We just need a little. So I'm going to add it to where someplace where we had some Payne's Gray here. There. And that's all I'm going to grab. Okay. Now you would think that the further away something is, the darker you would have it, but that's actually opposite. What you want is the further away to have lighter. So this looks like it's further back, like the Purple Mountains Majesty, right? So I'm going to mix just a tiny, tiny little bit of black with our Payne's Gray to come down here and create a slightly more near frame. There we go. Okay, so we're going to slightly nearer in that area, slightly nearer over here. Okay, and again, because the paint is still slightly damp, we're still getting that smoother finish as we go through. Okay. Now again, we're going to let us dry just a little bit more, but you can kind of see where you've got the zones. You've got a dark sky up here. You've got your clouds coming in through here, your sunrise, sunset colors. And in here, you've got some great detailing when it comes to your landscape, etc. I need more water. Don't drink the paint water. Rule number 1. Okay. Okay, now to do a tree, we're actually going to go fairly black. And I'm going to use this big brush, even though we don't want big all over the place. Okay, you'll notice that I'm flattening it out a bit if I can. Okay, and we're going to do that as we go. And this is going to be what's going to even create the small thin branches that come out. So down here at the base, we're going to have our trunk. And the tree is going to be right about here. So we're going to go here, and we're going to have a trunk. Don't be afraid to have a little bit of texture going through there. You'll notice now I'm using smaller strokes because We don't want to have too much show through, okay? So now we're going to go with slightly firmer lines. There we go. Using our big fat brush even to do fine lines. The trick is, the heavier you push, the thicker the line. So there we go. You see how it has even split off and created its own branch there? Oop. What I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to create some smaller branches because this is a very thick one. Smooth that out again. Okay, I'm not using a light enough touch. That's okay. It's also very, very easy to end up making it look like deer antlers. We don't want to antler our tree. My husband's a hunter. He likes that idea. Okay, so don't worry if your brush skips a little bit. That's okay. Okay, so we want to have this. We want to have you go a little bit further, and there we go. Now we've got some softness coming out of that. There. You'll notice that as we go, it doesn't matter what part of the sky we're hitting, we're creating tree. And the tree is very focal, very centered, because it's right here at the bottom of the foreground. Okay, we've got some of the colors from the other parts of our palette coming in, and it's creating shadows and depth. We're going to go a little bit here, a little further up here. And sometimes branches crisscross. So there's that. There's that. You never want to have a branch thicker at the end than it is at the base, because that's just not how branches work. Okay, do we need more branches? What do you think? Douglas, do they think we need more branches? He's not, again, don't drink the paint water. I have no idea what time it is. Okay. So we've been at this just over an hour. I hope you'll all stick around with me for this last little bit. Okay, so we're going to, do we need more branches? That's what I'm asking. Thanks, Mary. Appreciate that. Okay. Do this to flatten out the bristles a bit, because that's where you end up getting really thick branches. This branch needs a little bit more coming off it. And don't worry if they're very pale, very light. I should have brought a smaller brush up, but I didn't. Whenever you're starting a little branch, you want to start a fair bit into the base, again, because you want to be able to have thinner at the tip than it is at the base. Okay, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this tree looks like it's dead. Well, it will for a minute, and then it'll get better. Okay, so if you take a look at all the black that I've used, how much black have I used? I just put a little bit of black there on my palette. I used almost none. So I'm going to do this a little bit down here with some black, give it a bit more definition along the bottom. Okay, so there's the basis of our tree. We are now going to go back into the tree with, oh, Doug's got a light so you can see the different shades and contours a bit better. We're going to go back in, but we're going to do the same type of stipple effect that you would with stenciling. So we're going to make sure our brush is nice and fluffy. I do not recommend doing this with all brushes. Make sure you have only one or two that you do this with, okay? And if you've done it with a brush and you need to fix it, let me know and I'll help you fix it. Okay, so then we're going to take this area here and we're going to create little leaves. How on earth are you going to create leaves? Well, a lot like how we created the clouds. When I first started doing this, I used to be afraid of having too much of this going on. And then I started doing heavier and heavier and found that actually it looks more natural to have slightly heavier in that. That's where the leaves are, is all over those branches. So don't be afraid to go kind of heavy. There we go. And like I said, you never want to teach your children this is how you paint. But for certain techniques, this is what you do. You'll notice that I'm doing this as I go, so I'm not getting all of the same pattern throughout. And in through here, we're having some invisible branches show up because you don't always see all of the little branches, right? Now you can see the layers of the clouds and the colors all behind the tree. I feel a little bit like Bob Ross. A little. He is the master. Okay. Remember to spin your brush around so you don't end up with the same pattern throughout. Otherwise, it looks exactly like what you're doing is what you're doing. Similar to the clouds, you're going to get different effects when you have different colors behind. So the black isn't 100% black in here. It has now mixed with some of the white and some of the peach that was in there before. Okay, So we're going to go in with a touch more black in through here. Okay, and then we're going to go in with some Payne's Gray. Because the Payne's Gray just gives it that extra little bit of dimension to it, we're going to wipe off most of the black from our brush. We're going to scrub it, get that little dry brush effect going on there. And then we're going to go in with some gray. Look how beautifully this has turned out with the trunk, with all of those little bits. So now we're going to go in with the Payne's Gray. And much like with the black, we want to swoosh our stuff around. Oh, a little too wet in there. There we go. And again, don't forget to twist your brush around. Look at that, how that went very, very dark. We don't want that. So we're just gonna do this to our brush. We're gonna fluff it up. Then we're gonna fluff those out. There we go. You see how that happened? And how easy that is to fix? So the cool thing is, even when you have a quote unquote mistake, don't worry about it. You're not going to have to do very much to fix it. You just have to know how. That's all. Okay. There we go. We're almost done. Look how far out from the actual branch I'm going. Going quite a ways out, because there's always those little itty bitty branches that you just don't see, right? All right, what do you think? You think that's a good tree? I think that's a good tree. And now we're going to put a little bit of shrubbery around. Okay, so we're going to do some with the black again. We're going to go black because the Payne's Gray, see how light that is? We want to scrub our black into our brush. Make sure we don't have too much. So you're going to test it out on, your, there we go. And you're just going to tap. Look at the shrubbery that just shows up there. See? And there you have a shrub. Not that difficult to do. Maybe a little bit of grass in there. Okay, so like that. And here we're going to add some trees. We're going to use the same scrubbed out brush, except this time we're going to go from here and we're going to just, there we go. What do you think? I think it looks great. I think it's going to be one of those ones that it's just going to have to dry. And for me, it's going to have to grow on me because I never like something immediately. But I think I am going to like this in the end. So this one I will sign on the front because I do have an up and down. But more importantly, once it is 100% dry, you take about a week because there's all these layers in there and it's going to have to take time. Once it's 100% dry, I'm going to go over it with a clear coat and everything's just going to pop out. It's going to look so much more 3D. These little tiny pieces that sort of look cloudish are really going to come out. And in through here, really going to pop through these little bits of color that are behind there. Okay, so now, what do you think? There, let's push this back a bit. Okay, there's that. And now I'm going to show you what I do with the excess paint when I do a pour. What I do is I make jewelry. So I take the excess paint and I put a piece of glass on the pretty parts. This particular one spins around. So you've got a twofer. Oh. Now this is what I call directing the shot. Physically directing the shot. So there's that. There's oval ones like this. Is it actually centered on there? Sort of. I can't go much closer. You can move the camera easier than I can move this. There we go. So oval ones. Even ones that look dark and black because there is that shading in there, because there's that extra bit of color in there. It's amazing how much detail you can get in that. I love this base color. It looks like a planet to me. There we go. We've got our keys. Again, these are two of my favorites because I love the depth of the metallic color that's in them. Like that. Up higher. Okay. I love the depth of the color. My husband's really close to my hand. We've got some lockets. Here we go, some lockets. We've got some chokers, like this on a cord. And then if for people who don't like to have silver chains, we have some black box chains as well with a black base for the different, pourings, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Anyways, so everything that you see on here, plus a whole pile of other stuff, is on my new Shopify store. I will put the link in the description, and feel free to take a look, browse around. I do not know the shipping charges because what the program itself does the shipping charges for me. So I have no idea how much that's going to be. So I would like people to tell me, what do you think? Can you see how this is so soothing? How I was able to just concentrate on things that don't look perfect and have it turn out beautiful. Because each little part here that doesn't look perfect ends up having its own point. It has its own reason for being there. So I absolutely love this. It's a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me on this ride. And I'll talk to you on Thursday when I'm going to be talking to Ben Turner, about hope. What helps to give him hope through his own mental challenges that he goes through on a regular basis. So this is the last week of Mental Health Awareness Month. And thank you so much for joining me on this trip. Bye. You need to hit the end stream thing.